Welcome. We are embarking on another teaching exploration today. We're focusing on a really crucial piece of scripture.
We are. We're looking at the final chapter of John's Gospel,
Mm.
John chapter 21. And honestly, it often feels like its own little book, doesn't it? So much packed in there.
It really does. And this particular session draws from material put together by the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
That's right. And our goal, our mission for you listening, is really to pull out those key lessons on things like restoration, grace, and what focused discipleship actually looks like through the lens of this chapter.
Yeah, because if you've ever felt like, you've messed up too badly, or maybe you've kind of stepped back from where you felt God was leading you, well, this chapter speaks directly to that. It's like a masterclass in second chances.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And contextually, the chapter itself tells us in verse 14 that this is the third time Jesus showed himself to the disciples after he was risen from the dead.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Because it doesn't start with like a big triumphant moment. It starts with, well, uncertainty.
Right. The location is key. They're back at the Sea of Tiberias, which is just another name for the Sea of Galilee. This is their home turf.
This is where they know how things work.
Exactly. They've seen the risen Lord, yes. They've received some instructions. But maybe the day-to-day reality of this huge mission, the Great Commission, hasn't quite sunk in, or maybe they're just waiting for the next step. They're in this kind of limbo state.
Professionally, spiritually, just waiting. And the text actually tells us who's there, which is interesting. It shows it wasn't just one or two guys feeling lost.
Mm-hmm. John chapter 21, verse 1 starts, "After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples of the Sea of Tiberias, and on this wise showed he himself."
Okay.
Then verse 2 lists them. There were together Simon Peter and Thomas called Didymus, and Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee and two other of his disciples.
So 7 of them, a core group.
A real core group, the future leaders of the church, all gathered and all
Wow.
seemingly waiting.
And in that waiting, who steps up? Simon Peter. Always the action guy, isn't he?
Always. He makes a decision. He says, "I go a-fishing."
Which sounds simple, but given the context, does it feel less like a plan and more like a retreat, going back to what's known?
I think that's a fair reading. It feels profoundly relatable, actually. Think about Peter's journey, witnessing the resurrection, the ultimate high, but also denying Christ 3 times the ultimate low. He's been forgiven, sure, but emotionally, he must be feeling pretty shaky.
Yeah, you can imagine.
What do we often do when we're unsure, maybe feeling guilty, or just lost?
Right.
We tend to go back to our default settings, right? Back to what we know, what we're good at. For Peter, a lifelong fisherman, that was fishing.
Okay, but let me push back a little. Is it definitely a retreat in a negative sense, or could it just be practical? They're waiting, they need to eat, maybe keep busy. Is the text itself framing it as a failure right from the start?
That's a really important question. It might have started practically, but I think the way the narrative unfolds suggests it becomes symbolic of trying to operate, or maybe unconsciously, outside of Christ's new direction for them.
Because if it was just, productive waiting.
Exactly. The outcome probably wouldn't have been so starkly negative. And look how the others react. They immediately say, "We also go with thee." It's like they're all gravitating towards the safety of the old life, the familiar routine.
Okay, so let's read that verse. John chapter 21, verse 3. Simon Peter saith unto them, I go a-fishing. They say unto him, We also go with thee. They went forth and entered into a ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing.
That night they caught nothing. That phrase just hangs there, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, these aren't amateurs. These are seasoned professional fishermen. They knew that lake like the back of their hands.
They used all their skill, presumably worked through the night, which is usually the best time to fish there, and zero. Nothing. A complete and utter failure in their area of expertise.
And that failure, it's more than just a bad night of fishing, isn't it? It feels like a theological statement.
I think it absolutely is. It highlights this huge principle. Even our best efforts, our most skilled work, if it's done apart from Christ's specific guidance or blessing, it can ultimately be fruitless.
Like trying to build something without the master builder's input.
Precisely. Our source material connects us to Psalm 127, verse 1. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. These master fishermen were laboring in vain. They needed more than just their skill set. They needed a word from the Lord. It's a stark picture of relying on our own strength versus relying on the Spirit.
Okay, so the night ends in failure, but then dawn breaks and things change. Verse 4 says, But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore. But the disciples knew not that it was Jesus.
Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? This theme of not immediately recognizing the resurrected Jesus. We saw with Mary Magdalene in the garden back in John 20.
Right, she thought he was the gardener.
And the disciples on the road to Emmaus in Luke 24. It wasn't until he broke bread that their eyes were opened. It suggests maybe his glorified body was different, or maybe recognition required a moment of spiritual insight, or even him choosing to reveal himself.
So Jesus is on the shore. They don't recognize him yet. And he calls out a question. That's pretty simple, almost casual. Verse 5, Then Jesus saith unto them, Children, have ye any meat?
Like, hey kids, catch anything. You can almost hear the weariness in their reply. They answered him, no, just a flat no. That sums up their entire night's work.
And then comes the pivot, the specific instruction.
This is the moment. This is the word that cuts through the failure and the fatigue.
Let's read it. John chapter 21, verse 6, the first part. And he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find.
Now think about that. It's not general fishing advice. It's incredibly specific. The right side. Why the right side? There's no logical fishing reason given. It feels like a word of knowledge, divine insight for their exact situation.
A test of obedience, almost. Just do this specific, slightly unusual thing I'm telling you to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their response, the second part of verse 6, they cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes.
Wow. The contrast is just immediate and overwhelming. A whole night of their best efforts yields nothing. One simple act of obedience to a stranger's command.
Results in a catch so huge they can't even haul it in properly. It's supernatural abundance. And it perfectly illustrates the difference between operating in your own strength and operating under his specific direction.
It shows where true fruitfulness comes from. Not just hard work, but obedience to his word.
It shifts them right back from our failed efforts to God's provision.
Okay, so this massive catch, it obviously triggers something. Recognition dawns, but it comes in two very different ways, reflecting two personalities.
It does. First, you have John, often called the disciple whom Jesus loved. He seems to perceive things on a deeper, more intuitive level. Verse 7, Therefore that disciple whom Jesus loved saith unto Peter, It is the Lord.
His closeness to Jesus perhaps gave him that spiritual insight. He recognized the pattern, the miraculous provision linked to obedience.
Seems likely. And then you have Peter's reaction. Pure impulsive action. As soon as he hears John say, It is the Lord.
He doesn't stop to analyze it, does he?
Not at all. The rest of verse 7, Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girt his fisher's coat unto him, for he was naked, and did cast himself into the sea.
He just had to get to Jesus immediately. What does naked mean here? Probably not literally nude, right?
Scholars generally think it means stripped down for work, maybe just in his undergarments. So he quickly throws on his outer tunic or coat, likely out of respect for being in the Lord's presence, and then just dives in.
How far did he swim?
The text says later they were about 200 cubits from land. That's roughly, maybe 100 yards, 300 feet. He just couldn't wait for the boat. Classic Peter. Once he knows, he acts.
Okay, so while Peter's doing his solo swim, the other 6 are left dealing with this ridiculously heavy net.
Yeah, they've got the practical problem. Verse 8. And the other disciples came in a little ship, for they were not far from land, but as it were, 200 cubits, dragging the net with fishes. They're close, but it's still a struggle.
And then I get this incredibly specific detail when they finally get the net ashore. The number.
Ah, yes, the famous number. Verse 11. Simon Peter went up and drew the net to land full of great fishes, 153. And for all there were so many, yet was not the net broken.
153. Why that exact number? It feels so precise. Like John wanted us to know it wasn't just a lot of fish.
Exactly. On one level, it just underscores the sheer scale and reality of the miracle. These were great fishes, big ones, and a specific, countable, huge number. It adds to the eyewitness feel of the account.
But surely, given John's style, there's likely deeper symbolism being suggested too, especially with the whole fishers of men theme running through their calling.
Oh, absolutely. Commentators have explored this for centuries. One very old tradition, mentioned by figures like Jerome, suggested that Greek zoologists at the time believed there were exactly 153 species of fish in the world.
Wow. So if that's the background John's audience understood.
Then the catch symbolizes the entirety of the known world, all nations, all types of people, being drawn into the kingdom through the work of the disciples, the universality of the gospel message.
That's powerful. Are there other interpretations floating around, maybe numerical ones?
Yes, quite a few, involving gematria, the assigning of numbers to letters. For instance, 153 is what's called a triangular number. It's the sum of the numbers 1 through 17.
1 plus 2 plus 3, all the way up to 17 equals 153.
Exactly. And 17 itself is sometimes seen as combining 10, representing, say, the law or divine order, and 7, representing perfection or the spirit. So it's just a kind of perfect, complete ingathering under God's plan.
So whether it's about the species or the numbers, the point is this incredible, divinely orchestrated completeness and the detail that the net didn't break.
That's crucial, too. Despite this massive, diverse haul the net holds, it suggests the capacity of the church, the vessel of the gospel, to contain this huge influx without tearing apart. It can handle the scope of God's plan.
And this whole event must have powerfully reminded them of that first miraculous catch back when Jesus initially called them.
Absolutely. That scene in Luke chapter 5 where a similar miracle happened, and Jesus told Peter, "From now on, you will catch men." This is like round 2, confirmation. The call still stands, but now it's empowered by the resurrection.
Okay, so they finally get ashore, dragging this incredible proof of God's provision and their obedience, only to find Jesus has beaten them to it.
It's such a tender moment, verse 9. As soon as they were come to land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid thereon, and bread. Breakfast was already served.
He didn't actually need their fish, did he? His provision was already there, independent of their success or failure.
Exactly. He is the provider, but then look what he does. Verse 10. Jesus saith unto them, Bring of the fish which ye have now caught.
He invites them to add their catch to his meal. Why?
It speaks volumes about partnership, doesn't it? He doesn't need our contribution, but he invites it. He wants us to bring the fruit of our obedience, our 153 fish, and join it with his work. It validates their effort and lets them participate in the blessing he initiated.
It makes it a shared meal, a shared success.
And the invitation itself is so simple, so warm. Verse 12. Jesus saith unto them, Come and dine, come and eat, come and have fellowship, find rest and sustenance.
And how did the disciples react? Is the awkwardness gone?
There's still a sense of awe. The rest of verse 12 says, And none of the disciples durst ask him, Who art thou? Knowing that it was the Lord, they knew. The miracle, the provision, his presence, it was unmistakable. But the reverence was profound. No casual questions now.
And he serves them. Verse 13. Jesus then cometh and taketh bread and giveth them, and fish likewise, the resurrected Lord, making them breakfast, serving them.
It just shows his heart, doesn't it? Seeking them out, providing for them, inviting them into this warm, personal relationship. And this intimate setting, this shared meal, becomes the perfect backdrop for what happens next. The incredibly personal restoration of Peter.
Right, the focus shifts dramatically here. From the group breakfast to this intense one-on-one between Jesus and Peter, this is, well, it's one of the most moving parts of the whole Bible, I think.
Agreed. Especially when you remember the context, Peter's very public, very painful denial. We read about it in Matthew 26, how he swore and cursed, insisting he didn't know Jesus.
Yeah.
3 times.
And now Jesus is going to address that head on, but with such grace.
Exactly. The structure is clearly intentional. Jesus asks Peter about his love 3 times, directly mirroring the 3 denials. It's a chance for Peter to publicly affirm his love, effectively canceling out the public denials. It's about healing and reinstatement.
So the first question comes in verse 15. So when they had dined, Jesus saith to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? That more than these. What does these refer to?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It could mean, do you love me more than these other disciples love me? Peter had previously boasted he would never desert Jesus, even if everyone else did. So it could be a gentle challenge to that prior arrogance.
Or given the setting.
Or, perhaps more likely, it means, do you love me more than these things? The boats, the nets, the fish, the whole fishing life he had just tried to return to. Is Jesus truly number one, above even the familiar comforts and successes of his old life?
So Jesus is asking for total priority. But the real depth here, the part we miss in English, is in the specific Greek words used for love, right?
Absolutely critical. When Jesus asks the first 2 times, lovest thou me, he uses the Greek word agape.
Which means?
Agape is that divine, self-sacrificial, unconditional love. It's a love of the will, a commitment that gives everything regardless of feeling or response. It's God's kind of love.
Okay, so Jesus asks for agape love. How does Peter respond the first 2 times? Verse 15 continues. He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. What word does Peter use?
Peter replies using phileo.
Phileo. That's different.
Very different. Phileo is brotherly love, friendship, affection, a deep emotional bond. It's a warm human love. Peter, completely humbled by his failure, feels he can no longer claim that unwavering agape. He basically says, Lord, you know I'm your friend. You know I care deeply for you, Filio, but I can't promise that perfect, unfailing agape love right now because I know I failed.
Wow. That's brutally honest, isn't it? He knows his own weakness. He's not making grand promises anymore.
He can't. His previous boast ended in disaster. So he appeals to what he knows is true in his heart, his affection for Jesus, but he won't overstate it.
Okay, so that happens twice. Jesus asks for agape. Peter offers filio. What about the third time? Verse 17.
This is where the grace is just overwhelming. Jesus meets Peter right where he is. The third time, Jesus changes his question. He asks Peter essentially, do you filio me? He uses Peter's own word.
He lowers the bar, in a sense, to meet Peter's confessed level of love.
Exactly. But this shift, this third question, is actually what breaks Peter's heart. Verse 17 says, Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, lovest thou me? Using filio.
Why was he grieved then? Wasn't it good that Jesus met him there?
It was good, but the repetition and maybe Jesus questioning even his friendship brought the full weight of his 3 denials crashing down on him. It was a painful reminder. But in that grief, Peter finds complete surrender.
How does he answer the third time?
He stops trying to define his love at all. He just throws himself entirely on Jesus' knowledge of him. And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Filio.
It's like saying, my words failed me before. My feelings might fail me again, but you know my heart. You know the truth deep down. I trust your knowledge of me, not my own strength.
That's it exactly. Total reliance on Christ's perception, not his own capability. It's the bedrock of restoration.
And immediately following each of Peter's affirmations, what does Jesus do?
He gives him a command, a commission. It shows that forgiveness isn't just wiping the slate clean. It's about restoring purpose, putting him back into service.
So what are the commands?
After the first, I love you. Jesus says, feed my lambs. After the second, feed my sheep. And after the third, feed my sheep again.
Lambs first, then sheep. What's the significance there?
Lambs usually represent the new believers, the young, the vulnerable ones who need gentle care. Sheep represent the broader flock, the more mature believers who need guidance and nourishment. Jesus is entrusting the entire spectrum of his followers to Peter's care.
And isn't it incredible that the very man who failed so spectacularly is now being given the primary role of shepherd?
It turns our logic upside down, doesn't it? But maybe his failure and the profound experience of being restored by grace actually qualified him. It would make him a much more compassionate, understanding shepherd. He knows what weakness feels like.
Like Jesus had said earlier in Luke 22, that after Peter had turned back, he would strengthen his brothers. His experience becomes fuel for ministry.
Precisely. The conversation then shifts again, from past failure and present restoration to future reality. Jesus gives Peter a glimpse of what lies ahead.
Yeah, this is quite sobering. Verse 18. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdedst thyself, and walkest whither thou wouldest. But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee, and carry thee whither thou wouldest not.
That sounds ominous. When you're young, you're independent, you go where you want. But when you're old, you'll stretch out your hands, perhaps suggesting crucifixion, and someone else will bind you and take you where you don't want to go.
And John, the writer, removes any doubt about the meaning. Verse 19 clarifies, this spake he, signifying by what death he should glorify God.
Jesus is predicting Peter's martyrdom. Tradition holds he was crucified upside down. A difficult end, yes, but Jesus frames it as the way Peter would ultimately glorify God. It confirms that Peter's restoration was real, that he would stay faithful to the end.
What a heavy yet confirming prophecy. And after letting all that out, past failure, present love, future sacrifice, what's the final command?
The simplest yet most profound command of all. The end of verse 19. And when he had spoken this, he saith unto him, follow me.
That sums it all up, doesn't it? Regardless of past, present, or future, follow me.
So you'd think, after that incredibly intense personal exchange, restoration, commission, prophecy of martyrdom, ending with follow me, Peter would be laser-focused, right?
You'd think. Just put one foot in front of the other and follow Jesus. But Peter is Peter. What happens?
He immediately gets distracted. It's almost comical, if it weren't so relatable. Verse 20. Then Peter, turning about, seeth the disciple whom Jesus loved following, which also leaned on his breast at supper, and said, Lord, which is he that betrayeth thee?
He sees John walking behind them too, and his first thought isn't about his own path.
Nope. Verse 21. Peter, seeing him, saith to Jesus, Lord, and what shall this man do?
What about him, Lord? Oh, wow. That is the comparison trap in its purest form, isn't it?
It absolutely is. He just got his own challenging destiny laid out, and his immediate reaction is to look sideways and wonder about someone else's path. Is his journey going to be different? Easier? What's his story?
We do that all the time, don't we? We get our own assignment from God, and then we start looking at what others are doing, what gifts they have, what path they're on, and we start questioning our own.
It's such a human tendency. It stems from insecurity, maybe envy, maybe just a lack of focus, and it pulls us away from the one thing we're actually supposed to be doing.
And Jesus' response is, well, it's pretty direct, a sharp course correction.
Very sharp and incredibly liberating. Verse 22, Jesus saith unto him, If I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? Follow thou me.
Boom. If I want him to live until I return, what business is that of yours? Your job is to follow me.
It's such a crucial lesson for every single believer. My walk with God is personal. Your walk is personal. His plan for John, or for your neighbor, or for that person you see online that's between God and them. Your focus needs to be solely on hearing and obeying the call you received.
Run your own race, basically. Stop looking at the other lanes.
Exactly. As Hebrews 12 tells us, fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith, and run the race marked out for you. It frees us from comparison and envy.
Now, this comment Jesus made about John possibly tarrying until he comes, apparently it caused a bit of a stir.
It did. John himself clarifies this in the next verse, verse 23. Then went this saying abroad among the brethren, that disciple should not die. Yet Jesus said not unto him, He shall not die. But if I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee?
So John's setting the record straight. He's saying, look, a rumor started that Jesus promised I wouldn't die. That's not what he said. He used it as a hypothetical to correct Peter's focus. It shows John's commitment to accuracy as a historian.
Yes, and he doubles down on his authority and the truthfulness of his account in the very next verse.
Verse 24, this is the disciple which testifieth of these things and wrote these things, and we know that his testimony is true. He identifies himself as the writer, the eyewitness, and adds that we, likely his community or fellow elders, vouch for the truth of his gospel. It's a strong affirmation.
It really anchors the reliability of everything we've just read throughout the Gospel of John.
And then the final verse of the chapter and the entire gospel, it's just breathtaking.
It really is. It leaves you with this sense of infinite wonder. Verse 25. And there are also many other things which Jesus did, the which, if they should be written, every one, I suppose that even the world itself could not contain the books that should be written. Amen.
Wow. After everything he has written, all the signs, teachings, the crucifixion, the resurrection, he says that's just scratching the surface.
It's the perfect ending. It reminds us that Jesus is inexhaustible. No book, not even John's inspired gospel, can fully capture his greatness. Our journey of knowing him, exploring his depths, will truly never end. It leaves you in awe.
Okay, let's try to pull together some of the major theological threads and practical takeaways from this incredible chapter. First, that huge theme of restoration and grace.
Yeah, this would be the core lesson. Peter's failure was about as public and total as it gets. Denial, cursing. Yet Jesus doesn't just forgive him. He restores him. And restoration isn't just saying you're forgiven. It's saying you're back in. Your purpose is reinstated.
So it's not just wiping away the sin, but actually putting him back into ministry.
Exactly. His failure didn't disqualify him permanently. Grace met him, healed him, and recommissioned him. And that offers incredible hope for all of us, doesn't it? Because we all fail.
Absolutely. It tells you that no mistake is too big for God's restoring grace. And the source material highlights that the Holy Spirit is the one doing that deep, personal restoration work in us today, often using our past failures to make us more compassionate and effective in the future.
Then the second big insight, flowing from that fishing scene, the importance of Spirit-led ministry.
Right, the contrast between the night of fruitless toil and the morning of miraculous abundance.
It's dark. All their professional skill, all their hard work yielded nothing. One specific word from Jesus, obeyed in simple faith, yielded overwhelming results, those 153 fish.
So the lesson for us is,
stop relying solely on our own plans, our own strength, our human ingenuity, no matter how smart we think we are. We need to be actively listening for and depending on the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Like Proverbs 3 says, trust in the Lord. Lean not on your own understanding. The difference between spinning our wheels and seeing real fruit often comes down to hearing his specific direction, casting the net on the right side, whatever that means in our context.
that's a huge challenge to how we often operate.
Yeah.
Okay, and the third insight, you mentioned the primacy of love.
Yes, drawn from that intense threefold questioning of Peter, Jesus makes it crystal clear. The foundation for any ministry, any service, has to be genuine, personal love for him.
Whether it's the perfect agami or the honest filio Peter could offer, love had to be the root.
It had to be the starting point. Before feed my lambs or feed my sheep, the question was always, do you love me? Without that love, as Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 13, even the most impressive gifts or sacrifices are just noise, empty. Ministry flows from relationship.
Okay, so restoration, spirit-led work, and love is the foundation. How do we translate this into practical steps? What's the takeaway for someone listening right now?
Well, the overarching message is, failure is never final with Jesus. He meets us right where we are, often on the shores of our own confusion or failure, just like he met Peter.
So if you feel like you're back to fishing in old habits, maybe feeling discouraged or ineffective, what's the first step?
Don't just keep casting the same empty nets, hoping for a different result. The first step is to stop. Look up, look towards the shore, metaphorically speaking. Listen for his voice. Are you trying to fix things in your own strength, or are you waiting for his direction?
And then bring the failure, the confusion, whatever it is, to him, honestly.
Yes. Confess your love for him, even if it feels imperfect, like Peter's filio. You don't have to pretend, just be honest. Say, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Trust that he sees your heart, even when you feel weak.
And trust that he can use even the experience of failure for good to make you more compassionate, more reliant on him.
Absolutely. And finally, really take to heart that sharp command Jesus gave Peter about comparison. Follow thou me.
Stop looking left and right at what others are doing.
Yes, your journey, your calling, your pace, it's unique to you. Don't get paralyzed by comparing your path to someone else's. Focus on your personal walk with Christ. Hear his specific instructions for you and simply obey. Run your race. Hashtag outro, final thought and next steps.
Wow. John 21 really is just packed, isn't it? That journey from denial and hitting rock bottom right through to complete restoration and a refocused personal mission. It shows the incredible depth of Christ's grace.
It truly does. It's a message of hope that resonates so powerfully, no matter how many times you read it.
And thinking about that final verse, verse 25, the idea that the world couldn't even contain all the books about Jesus, it just leaves you with this sense of his infinite greatness.
Which leads to maybe a final thought for you to consider, since we know we'll never exhaust the depths of who Jesus is.
Right.
What's one specific thing, maybe a characteristic of his, an area of his teaching, something from his life that you could intentionally choose to explore or study more deeply this week? Just one small step to appreciate his inexhaustible greatness a little more.
That's a great challenge. Let that curiosity about the endlessness of Christ guide you.
Definitely.
Okay, and as we wrap up this exploration of John chapter 21,
to solidify your understanding of this lesson, be sure to use the flashcards to review key terms and then take the quiz. Passing the quiz will mark this lesson as complete.